Rugby pod.
Right, Biggs. When you think of Lions tours, iconic modern day Lions tours, what are the moments you think of?
So there's a couple. I would say the Mornay Stain penalty in 2009.
Yeah. For the wrong reasons, yeah.
For the wrong reasons. I would say the O'Driscoll spear tackle in 05 is kind of like, iconic again for the wrong reasons. But if I'm thinking of, especially given where this tour is going this year, I think it's George North picking up Israel Folau on his back in that first test in Brisbane 12 years ago.
Well, I would say two moments, and they're both George North moments. I'm saying the piggyback of Izzy Folau, and I'm saying the point at Will Genia as he scores in the corner.
Yeah. Who's our guest today, Rob?
Well, as luck would have it, it's the man himself.
So a few facts about George. Debuted for Wales at 18, over 100 caps for Wales, two-time British and Irish Lion, second on the all-time try-scoring list behind Shane Williams for Wales, World Cup semi-finalist, Grand Slam winner, Six Nations winner, the lot.
Legend.
Indeed, Rob. Should we get him on?
Get him on.
This episode is presented by Sky Sports on Now.
So, the British and Irish Lions are on tour, James.
They certainly are, Andrew. And if the millions of Rugby Pod listeners want to watch the action, then Sky Sports is the only place to do it. All 3 test matches and every single minute of the 6 warm-up games, live from the 20th of June to the 2nd of August.
And by streaming Sky Sports with Now, they can add or remove memberships whenever they like.
Oh, lovely stuff.
18 plus, UK only. Minimum speed 2.5 megabytes per second. Live scheduling may be subject to change and full terms apply.
George North, thank you very much for coming on the pod and chatting to us, mate. First of all, how are you? And how is the south of France treating you?
All right, Biggs. After what was it, 9.5 months of pestering, I've decided to come on the pod now. No, it's good. It's a bit hot for me now, south of France, I'll be honest. X is a little bit too warm for my delicate skin, but lovely part of the world to be in. Becky and the boys have settled lovely. So obviously very gutted that the season finished as it did, a bit short, but coming here injured and then starting the season, it was always going to be a bit tough, but really enjoyed my first year.
Give us and give the listeners a bit of a flavour of the south of France. Give us something that you've absolutely loved since you've been here. Not so much from a rugby point of view, but from a lifestyle point of view. And give us something that you found really difficult to adapt to.
There's a long list for both sides, isn't there? I think
there's a long list for one side. I know that. Yeah.
The lifestyle is brilliant. Yeah. For Becky, my 2 boys, Jack and Tommy, just being able to be here more. Obviously, not playing internationally, that helps as well. But just the fact that I'm able to do school drop off in the morning, pick them up in the afternoon. Like my 2, well, I'm the same. I just want to be outside. The sun is shining. They want to go on the bikes. They want to go to the skate park. They want to go in a swimming pool. They want to be outside all the time, and it's amazing for that. The French culture around family life is just amazing. It took a bit of time to get used to. When you're seeing kids running around at like 8:30, 9 o'clock when we're going out for dinner, and I'm like, my boys have been in bed like 2 hours already.
I was going to say, Harper State when they're just going out to eat.
I know, it's nuts. So I'm going, hang on, my boys have been in bed about an hour and a half, 2 hours already. But look, like the rugby side, it's been interesting. Like people always say, when you come to France, it'll take a while to understand how it works day to day for the games. There's some things that obviously coming from our background where it's a lot more structured and a lot more detail driven, to then just go in full jouer out the back door, and it's like, what's going on here? But I think towards the end of this season, we found a bit of a groove. I got a better understanding of the boys, obviously understanding how they do things. But yeah, some of the times I spent half my time going, wow, that is incredible. The offload, the play, you're going, that is like next level. And then the other half time I'm going, oh, that's a bit nuts, isn't it?
there's no halfway house, is it? It's either like absolutely 10 out of 10s or it's like park stuff, isn't it?
It's, do you know what, the passion and the how energized they are about rugby is it's contagious. It is contagious, isn't it? It's amazing. The fan base, the support, even in obviously Prud of Dirt not being top 14. We're sold out week in, week out here. Same with away from going away on it. Games away, it's incredible, and it's been amazing. It has been, and I'm really, really glad, and I'm really chuffed and proud that I got the opportunity to come out here and experience it. Because you hear boys that have come out to France and loved it, absolutely loved it, and you've heard boys that haven't enjoyed it, and you kind of think, well, what is it really like? But my first season, obviously, arriving injured as well, so I missed the first block, but. Yeah, it's been an amazing experience with a hint of a few. Oh, that's nuts.
All right, let's talk a little bit about you, George. You sort of burst onto the scene as a teenager with Wales after just a handful of games for the Scarlets. What do you remember about that debut against South Africa, and how did you feel sort of getting thrust into the limelight at such a young age after so little experience with the Scarlets?
I think first and foremost, it was incredible. Do you mean like 18 years old? That's exactly the cliche line is what dreams are made of, but that's exactly what I wanted to do. You're the same. Every guy, every person that's put on the red jersey for Wales, the ambition is always to put that jersey on, from a young age. And I got to do that a lot earlier than a lot of people, and that for me was incredible. The sacrifices of not, the uni life, cheap holidays to Ibiza with the lads. There's a sacrifice to that, but to play, for your country is huge. I don't know. I absolutely loved it. I was nervous, apprehensive, as you'd imagine, because obviously it's a huge step up. But I was playing with my heroes, and they were stood shoulder to shoulder with me, and that kind of gave me this weird confidence. I know, really excited, kind of like hold my hand through what is nuts. Do you know what I mean? And there were some nuts blokes when I was coming through, as you well know, like Philsy, Shane, Bernie, Powley, these boys. But those boys, they were boys I looked up to, and they guided me through. And yeah, to go 18 and 2 tries against Africa, playing against Habana, who's one of my heroes, was a real pinch me moment, really.
I was just about to ask. I mean, we could have our own pod on Philsy, Bernie, Shane, etc. But I think we may revisit that. Rob, what do you reckon? Maybe that's something for the after 10 p.m. slot. Maybe, I don't know. You touched on it there, George, about playing against Habana. Firstly, how special was it? But did you sort of feel like intimidated? You didn't belong in his presence, or was it very much like, I'm here? And I'm sort of like the next big thing type of thing.
No, that never really come across my mind, really. My mindset was just don't mess up. As you well, again, the era we came through, it was don't mess up. Not don't mess up. That's probably a bit too harsh, really. But like I touched on, I took great confidence in the fact that the players I had around me. People I looked up to, people that guided me. My mindset was, look, I've worked bloody hard to be here, and they wouldn't have picked me here if I didn't at least know roughly what I was doing. I mean, you learn a lot on the hoof, don't you? But I think for me, it was always a case of, you're here for a reason. And for me, I just knew I couldn't give him the outside. That was my one thing. Don't give him the outside. Don't give him the outside. Don't give Brian the outside. Don't give Brian the outside. That's all I kept saying to myself. Don't give Brian the outside. And luckily on that occasion, it was 2-0 to me on that one. So, but like I said, like walking into that Welsh camp to start with, one of my heroes, Shane Williams, very different, obviously stature, but young man in Wales, obviously a hero. People like James Hook, and then having those boys to look up to and play alongside, but then playing against people I also idolized, like Brian Habana, was just, I don't know, it's one of those ones. It's pretty nuts, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I've spoken to Lee Halfpenny quite a lot, and obviously you know him well as well. But he sort of said, because he made his debut against South Africa as well, and he sort of said that it felt surreal first of all playing at the Principality Stadium, but then you're playing against Habana, who's a World Cup winner you see on the telly all the time, and everything like that. So I'd imagine, especially in your position, it must have been, it's a little bit like for me playing against a Carter or a Wilkinson, and in that aspect, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I looking back now at the ripe old age of 33, it I don't know, it's just one of those ones. It's a real pitch me moment, and it's one of those ones. You're probably the same. That first test you ever play, you'll never forget that noise, the atmosphere. It literally just felt like a war, and it was just on top of you the whole time, and it was incredible. Yeah, and it's one of those ones that you probably remember. Everyone says to you in your first cap, "Oh, make sure you take it all in, boy." I'm like, yeah, take it all in, got it. And then literally whistle goes, and then whistle stops, and that's the game, isn't it? And it is nuts how quickly it goes.
It does go quickly. I don't think I don't know about you, but I don't think I fully took it in until I reckon I had about 50 caps, because I kind of knew like what to expect then, and I was like, that was when I wanted to sit on the window side of the bus coming into Cardiff. You know what I mean? I knew that I wanted to get that space in the changing room or whatever. That's when I kind of took it in. Whereas when you're young and your first few caps, it's all new, it's all different for you, isn't it?
Yeah, you get a bit dizzy, don't you? How much your head turns and what you're looking at and where you're going, and when you're young as well, you just sort of get taken along with it, don't you? You just sort of get dragged along, and I was thankful that I did get dragged along. And there's very few games that you can actually stand back and take it in and go, oh, especially internationally as well, especially you go, oh, this is unreal, and it probably took me probably on a very few occasions, but maybe 40 or 50 caps to really feel like this is something that you can feed off, you can really thrive off and push on with,
Let's fast forward a little bit, or let's look ahead to maybe this summer, given that it's a Lions tour to Australia. If I was to sort of say 2013 Lions tour to you, what would come to George North's mind straight away?
I would probably say my first try in the test. That would be the one thing that stood out. As in, if you said to me, like, what do you take from that tour? It was that moment. If I could have bottled that moment up and sell it, whatever that is in the bottle, Biggs, we wouldn't be talking now, but I'd delete your number. I'd be on a private jet somewhere, but.
You did text me back saying, "Who's this?" Actually, when I messaged you.
No, actually, it was who this is what I said. But for me, that was probably, and you probably feel that you felt the change of the summer tours and the big tours. That was the last proper, for me anyway. It felt it was the last proper tour of proper tour where you get to see the country, meet the people, and yeah. From a real selfish point of view, personal point of view, it was obviously everything I could have dreamed and more.
Give us a reason what the pointing to him was about. Anything in that? Because I felt sorry for Genia at that point. He was trying to chase you down, and I was just thinking, oh, he's up against it. Yeah. Any little story behind that?
No, I got absolutely abused for weeks and weeks after that. No, basically. Classic G, I kind of got a bit excited and then underestimated how close he actually was. So now I've broken through and I've turned thinking he's closer. I've gone to hand off and I thought, actually, he's not, he's okay. I'm okay. And then it's just sort of my hand has fallen and it just looks like I've pointed at him. And it's like, oh, what am I doing? But I actually spoke to him afterwards and I apologized. He's like, oh, don't worry. I would never have caught you anyway. He said I was still pulling grass out of my mouth when I landed on my face, so.
Yeah, he was definitely hoping you were just going to dot it down in the corner, not try taking him on. I can assure you of that, George.
I know.
I don't know about you, Rob, but if I think of 2013 Lions tour and George North, I probably think of that other iconic moment that you had with carrying Folau on your back, and given how much of a superstar Folau was, and sort of he was the the golden boy of Australian rugby at the time. What was the feeling going on there in your head when that was going on?
Oh, another classic. Gee, I wasn't really thinking. I think if you look at the phase of play, it comes off like a midfield ruck or something. It's an absolute brawl of a ruck. Do you know what I mean? It's one of those ones where it's not going to come out anytime soon. Then it just pancake comes out. Dricko's facing the ruck, and he just gives me this through the legs pass, which was worthy of a highlight reel for sure, but not because there was like 4 defenders on me. Like brilliant. And then I get it, and I run, and he's obviously run into him. And I don't know, it just felt like it's one of those ones. The stupid thing now is it just felt like the thing to do at the time. So then obviously the weight goes. I'm trying to drive down, weight goes down, and it goes a bit light. So I just pop up, and he's on my back, isn't he? And I'm going. So then I keep running, and then he did the old wrestling move. What do they call it? A DDT. And
Yeah.
and yeah, sparked my neck out. I was like this then afterwards. But yeah, it was good. It's good for the pic. It's a good picture, isn't it? But it was bad for my neck. But a classic, not thinking.
Yeah, I was just going to touch on you. You mentioned, you had some really iconic moments on that tour, and the point in the game. I know you said you sort of got a bit. Sometimes you get a bit carried away with the celebrating, not thinking, etc. I just sort of like talking about someone who is going on tour in terms of Henry Pollock. What's your sort of opinion on him in terms of like he's obviously putting himself out there. He's obviously a real character, a bit of showboating, he's got a bit about him, hasn't he, sort of thing. Does that sort of resonate a little bit with maybe a young George North as well?
I never had the balance to do that, and I think the era that we got dragged through, because I don't think that would ever be allowed either, really. But it's refreshing. Do you know what I mean? He's speaking as a young man and a young man experience. It's the best time he's probably it's exactly what he wants to do. He's exactly where he wants to be. He's playing in a great club side. He's had opportunity to play for his country, and he's been picked for Lions. Like, what an amazing opportunity! A great player, great future to him. I just really hope that someone can get around him and just give him the tools to protect himself a bit, because you know what it's like, as soon as anyone does something like this and puts himself out there, they get like both barrels, and it's like, let the boy enjoy his rugby. If he's a bit flash, then let him be. It is what it is, like, do you know what I mean? And he would have learned a lot from that, the European final for sure. But again, he's a young man learning his trade, like, let him be. But just I really hope that he's allowed just to keep developing, because like the game is going that way. The future of rugby. We need more characters to bring people in, but I hope they protect him, because as you well know, it can be a nasty place sometimes.
You said something there, George. I said I'm just trying to think of what people like Bomb and Mel and Adam Jones and Gethin Jenkins and those guys would have been like with him coming through. I think he'd have found it slightly more difficult to have brought his real personality out back in those days. But like you said, he is a real character, isn't he? He is, and I think, like you said, you summed it up really well. Just get behind him, let him do his thing, and the game needs more characters.
Yeah, it does, and like he'll find his way. Like he'll find his groove now, where he knows too much and too little. And because you know what, there's been enough characters you've played with that they need a bit of that to get the best out of them. You were always an angry bugger. He's obviously always like an energetic bugger, and whatever gets him to the best place he can be to play is what he needs to do, and that's great. But my fear is that people just take it for the wrong reason. Do you know what I mean? And they don't look after him. And I hope he gets a bit of, not support, like he doesn't know what he's doing, but just enough, people around him. I'm sure he's got great people around him, and the team were great at Northampton with him. So, like, just let the boy learn his trade and keep enjoying his rugby.
Fast forward 4 years, 2017 tour to New Zealand. I don't know what your sort of memories of it and how it compared to 2013 were, but for me, I felt like it was physically more demanding, mentally more demanding. I don't know if we had a day off for the first 4 weeks, did we? From travel and from playing, training, traveling, etc. What were your takeaways from 2017?
Very, very different from my personal point of view. I think Northampton at the time, we got caught on that 7th place in the Prem. Do you know where you end up playing? Uh, and then I ended up in those two
Was that the
games.
game, the Stade Francais game?
Yeah, the Stade Francais
Yeah.
game. And I popped out my SC joint in that game, and I popped out a rib. So I went on a Lions tour with two different bits popped out. But obviously, when you say, "Are you good?" you're always going to say, "Yeah, I'm good to go." Um, I wasn't in the best of form going into that. I was playing well, but not as well as I was hoping to, and I didn't get as many opportunities to play. But like you said, I remember that those first block of, yeah, it would have been 6 games, 8 games probably, because obviously you go Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday, just being relentless. A lot of traveling, a lot of training. I know it doesn't mean much, but like all the time, new surfaces, new stimulus. You got to be on a plane, plane, and it was tough. And obviously, the Kiwis, New Zealand absolutely love their rugby. Absolutely love their rugby. When a Lions tour comes around, I think it just like turbocharges them beyond excitement. They were ready for it. They were excited, and unfortunately, like I said, I didn't have the best form, so I didn't get an opportunity, which I probably didn't deserve either. Obviously, boys playing well, and then I end up ripping my hamstring from my bottom of my bum down to my knee in that midweek game in between the first and second test. It was tough.
Hurricanes.
Yeah,
Hurricanes?
Hurricanes. Yeah, Hurricanes, and that was the same one that Robbie Henshaw did his shoulder. So that was a fun car journey to get MRIs, me and Rob, I tell you. But we had a good few beers after. But yeah, very tough. But like I touched on earlier, a very different vibe on as a whole. 13 felt like the last proper tour. I felt that you could go and enjoy the country, the people. Go jet boating, go here, there, and everywhere. My boys are doing loads, but New Zealand felt like it was so busy, so much going on. It was tough, wasn't it? It is tough, but
Yeah. I was going to say, do you think that's because maybe in 2013 and Australia have got so much else going on in terms of their Aussie rules, cricket, rugby league, etc. Do you think that allowed you boys to be able to go out and about and do all the bits and pieces without the intense pressure that was there in New Zealand? And do you think that's something that the boys going on tour this year will maybe be able to enjoy the tour a little bit more had they been going to a New Zealand or a South Africa potentially?
maybe I think so. I think they will get a bit more freedom. There's a bit more to do as such, but I just think as a package as well. Like the business side is so strong now, and what it's like commercially that there's so much more you have to do. So from a player's point of view, still a huge honor, still amazing, and it's like what it be. But I think maybe they'll get an opportunity to do a bit more. But I haven't actually seen. I know they got 10 games, haven't they? There's 3 tests, 7 games, and I haven't actually seen where they'll be. Is because obviously with us, if in New Zealand, I felt like we were always jumping. Where in 2013 it felt like there was a bit more of a
Path
to it. Yeah, that's probably the right way. So I hope they do, because it's we've toured New Zealand, Australia, South Africa, amazing places. So I really hope we get to see Australia at its best.
This episode is brought to you by Sky Sports on Now.
The British and Irish Lions are down under for the tour, and I'm pretty excited to see how it's going to unfold, Jim.
Oh yeah, me too. I'll be glued to Sky Sports, as it's the only place to watch every thrilling moment. Andrew, who are you most looking forward to seeing?
Oh, it's got to be Finn Russell, my favourite fly half, my favourite player, now champion of England as well. Finn Russell's the man. What about you, Jim?
I'm interested to see if Henry Pollock, at the age of 20, could make the Test match side. That's it.
There we go. And what are your predictions?
Predictions 2-1. I reckon Lions first, Australia second in Melbourne in front of 100,000 people, and it's a straight shootout in the third.
However the Lions get on, it's going to be very hard to take your eyes off the action. So make sure you catch all 3 tests and all 6 warm-up games live from the 20th of June to the 2nd of August on Sky Sports.
And by streaming Sky Sports with Now, you can add and remove membership whenever you like.
Nice! Watch every match on Sky Sports, available to stream live with Now. 18 plus, UK only. Minimum speed 2.5 megabytes per second. Live scheduling may be subject to change, and full terms apply.
You've played under obviously some great coaches, Gats, Sean Edwards, several others at club level. Who do you think got the best out of you, and how did they do it?
I was very lucky that, to have the opportunity that I did. The best coach probably I've been under and got the best out of me is Sean Edwards, hands down. And I can already hear your follow-up question. How did he do that, George? And I would like to say,
no, but you know exactly what I know. So I'm hoping you give us a little bit of an insight for the listeners.
If I said it was love and holding my hand, you'd call me a liar, wouldn't you? So, Sean Edwards was probably the best coach I've ever worked with, and he got the best out of me because his famous line was, "If I'm not shouting at you, I don't think you're that good."
He must have thought you were absolutely world class because he didn't stop shouting at you for 10 years.
And he, like Sean, unreal. What was he? He had his defensive plan was very simple. That was very black and white. You had your role, and by God, he held you to it. Like, do you know what I mean? The back three, in his own words, was the hardest place to defend, and you knew it, didn't you? How many times you scream at me, Cuffy, Hallam, all these boys, like, do you know what I mean? Halfers, obviously world class, and I think Sean realised that he had to look after Halfers a different way to the rest of us. But even if it wasn't my fault, even if it was on the far side, he's still shouting at me like I've done something, and I'm going like this. I can still hear him in my head now. When you're injured, I can still hear him in my head saying, "Get up, you're never injured. You can stand there." And I'm like,
I think he realised early doors he couldn't shout at Halfers as much as he could shout at you and Cuffy.
No, I don't think me. I think me and Cuffy were a bit too stupid to realise that it was a sign of love.
Yeah, but maybe just give us a bit of an insight into what he is like to work with on the training pitch, and like I said, what maybe some examples of how he really did get the best out of you. Anything that sticks in your mind? It's
hard. It's so much at different levels, but he was incredibly detailed in everything he did. He took a real, the way I describe it is he was obsessed with it, wasn't he? Like but he would also want good attack, and and he would spend a long time analysing who we were playing, analysing what they were doing, what shapes they would bring, what four-man plays, what strikes, and the opportunities that they would bring. And then each week he'd have extras, wouldn't he, about specialising for that team, whether, we were playing, for example, playing in Murrayfield, big dead ball. So all week, all we were screamed at to do was turn and chase balls. And we would do hundreds of these, chasing these balls, as you well know, Biggs, because you were kicking them. But, like little things like that second man work about some teams running a bit high, certain players. And he was really detailed with that. The thing that I think is incredible about Sean is, everyone at this level, at our level, is accountable for what they do. But Sean would be the first to put his hand up if he said, "I didn't prepare you right." And he would give you all the tools, and he would ride you like a banshee because he wanted you to be the best you could be. But say if they brought something to the table, or they did something that he hadn't prepared you for, he'd be the first man to put his hand up and say, "That's my fault. I didn't do that." And it takes a real big man to be able to do that when you've got, 23 really angry lads that have just, not because of him, obviously other reasons, but and that's a real big skill, and something I really admired in Sean is that he would ride you as hard as he could to be the best you could be. But if he wasn't on his mettle, he would also put his hand up as well. And he was really good for me. Do you know, when I was 18, I didn't know what I was doing. Rough idea. Wouldn't say boo to a goose, and he just gave me that guidance I needed.
I feel like I can't move off Sean Edwards' topic without mentioning the wall of shame. Can we have your best feedback? Let's just set the scene. So basically, when you come down to the team room after every game, so we play Saturday, day off Sunday, Monday morning we'd go down to the dungeon. It was like the dungeon we used to call it, wasn't it? A Tree Castle. And you'd have the wall of shame would be in the middle of the team room on the projector, and it'd have like a note about, your defensive performance from the weekend. Can you give us your worst wall of shame sentence feedback from a game?
I'm trying to think. I had so many, and I've put them somewhere.
Trust me, I remember one of them. I've saved it in my memory for a long
Have
time.
you? I think if I start with the nicest one I ever had was it was just empty. There was no comment, and that when that happened, only maybe a handful of times, I walked in and I was like this, like what are the worst ones I've had? Biggs, I've had so many.
Yeah, well, can I give it? Can I give you the one that us boys basically have dined out for about 10 years on? Was the one where we come down and it's like next to your name. Like you get the okay if you've basically had a stormer. But it was like not international standards, sort it, and all the boys have come down and we're like, and but do you know what as well? What was good with him was he knew that would drive you on.
Yeah. I think one of I had one I remember, and it just said, "Do you know what you're doing? Do you listen?" And that was it, because obviously I hadn't done what he wanted to, or hadn't delivered. But he was, in all fairness, he was funny, mine, wasn't he? Some of the stuff he'd come out with, but again, he would drive you because he knew that's the way. And honestly, one of the nicest blokes as well. Sends me a message. He always keeps in touch, And when we played France in the last Six Nations in Cardiff, I didn't play that one. My last Six Nations, I ended up having a beer with him afterwards, and obviously, Sean, broad accent, and obviously he's been in France a long time. And when he first signed to go to France, I said, "How's your French going, Sean?" He said, "Don't worry about it. I only need three words in defence." Or was it up, hinge, and his defensive drills? Anyway, then having a beer with him afterwards, and he said to me, "Oh, congratulations, signed with X. Yeah, brilliant. Beautiful part of the world." He said, "If you ever need any help with your language, call me. I'll speak to them." And all I could think was, he only knows three words of defence, but I imagine,
important words.
Yeah, three important words. But I imagine now he's pretty fluent. But no, he's the best coach, and I think. Obviously, the three we had at the time, obviously Gats, Howlers, and Sean. I think they're very much the yin and the yang, and how they went about their work. Didn't always see eye to eye, but they always put the team and the best out of the boys first, didn't they? Which was good time.
They complement each other really well, didn't they?
Yeah.
And Sean was an absolute genius of a man. He knew what he was doing. He knew his tactics, and yeah, like you said, one of the best men in rugby union. Let's talk a little bit more about, let's say, the modern game. You've had a lot of injuries later on. You played a little bit in the centre and bits and pieces. What's your modern day winger look like? Because you've got so many different types now, haven't you? Whether it's your smaller, nippier wingers like your Colbys, Biel Barre, Darcy Graham, etc. You've got your kicking wingers, your James Lowe, your Jackal threats, your Hansons, etc. Give us maybe what you think as a Test Centurion winger. What do you think the modern day winger requires and looks like these days?
Well, I think in the years I've been playing, it evolved massively. Gone the days that not that ever did happen. You could stand on the wing and just wait for it to come to you. We always, from a very early age, they will always get busy, get moving. But it's not even about your work rate and where you turn up and, being inside 10, outside 10, around 12, or even working to the far side. It's about putting yourself in positions where, you see, like you said, the skill set is adapting to be able to jackal on the wide channels, great opportunity to turn over the kicking battle. But it's also being comfortable ball playing now, seeing boys jumping at 10 for first receiver, jumping in at second receiver, just giving opportunities, that back three being, be able to integrate and chop and change. And I think that the whole backline has gone that way now, where the ability to, gone are the days where it's just 10 stands and plays 10. You have to be able to do it. And for me, the skill set is just broadened and broadened and broadened. And you see now some of the boys and where they're going, and development is really great to see. I've seen, were you there when Tommy Freeman was at Northampton?
Yeah.
It's been amazing to watch him and how he's developed, and what the product he's putting out on the field now is great to see. It's great that Van der Merwe still doing it for the big boys on the wing, for the old boys that used to do that. But that ability, like I said, not just to pop up every now and again where you need to be or not wanted to be, I guess, but it's the ability to link up, whether it be space play, or back three work. It's yeah, like it's tough to put one thing on it, but the game has evolved now where you can't just be a one trick pony. You have to be able to do a number of things. You know.
Who's the best winger in the world currently? If you had to put your name to it.
Gosh, nice big straight shooting. For me, the boys that are playing, oh, I'm gonna miss loads, which is really annoying. But for me, like I said, Freeman's playing unreal at the moment. I think he's going in great form. Colby can never, take him out of the equation.
I think if you're asking me, I think Colby gives you everything, doesn't he?
He's annoying, isn't he? Really, he gives you he's really annoying, but then like on his day, like Josh Tuasova on his day is just unreal. Whether he plays 13 or probably wing, I think he's a winger through and through. The way use him properly, he's incredible. But for me, Colby is incredible, and very fortunate to play against him a few times, or not fortunate. I don't know, or unfortunate.
Yeah, unfortunate, fortunate, whichever way you look at it. Yeah. You touched on Tuasova there a little bit, playing a little bit of centre and wing. What's the biggest difference between playing 13, especially at test level? Because, club level, sometimes you can get away with it a little bit, can't you? But at the highest level, what's the biggest difference in those two positions? Because you're seeing a lot of players now sort of in that mould a little bit.
For me, I think if you take the obvious out of the equation, like the basic conditioning, it's a lot more scuttling around rather than your big loopy stuff. So take the condition out of the equation. For me, the biggest thing that constantly, still working on now, probably won't ever get 100% right, is just that communication and organising. You're talking as a winger, I'm coming, I'll be late on your outside shoulder, or the space is out wide, let's go wide, miss or something. And you can talk like that and you can put yourself in the structure. But with a centre, you're constantly talking, what you're seeing here, what messages are being relayed. You're trying to relay them whilst controlling, loosies in the midfield, trying to, give 10 an option. And that's the bit that, for me, the skill set that they don't tell you about when you're trying to change into that role. Again, I don't think I've got it, and I'm still always working on it. But there's so much going on, and it's like the speed of international rugby. You've got split seconds to make a decision based on what you're seeing, and it is tough. It is tough because you may only get a handful of opportunities, and if you've missed it because you haven't seen it or you haven't spoken about it, or if you have seen it and not spoken about it, that's worse. But again, that's part of the I guess the privilege of being in that position, the pressure, what comes with it.
What did you prefer, George? Because you played a lot of tests at 13, didn't you?
Oh, I think I absolutely adored wing at the time I came through because of the players we had. You had Doc just knocking lumps into brick walls. You had Foxy, who's probably one of the best players I've ever played with. You know what I mean? And the ability, playing outside Drico with the Lions was just incredible. So those opportunities really were great for me. I learned so much playing around those guys, and you get a lot of praise for not doing much work. You get to finish it off when someone else has done the work. Stop laughing, please, Rob. And and for me, I just absolutely loved that. And I think for me, that was exactly what I needed at that time. I think, to be honest, I've just loved playing 13. It's a position I played through age grade rugby growing up, and then through necessity and injuries, I just ended up playing wing for the Scarlets. But it's a position I love. It gives me opportunity to be a lot more involved, hands on the ball, a bit of opportunity to get the best out of me, and best out of me is running with the ball in hand in space, into the 15s, pulling people around me. And I'm really enjoying that challenge of communicating now, obviously in French, which is interesting because I can't even speak English properly. But yeah, I'm loving that challenge, and still loving that challenge now after all these years of trying to be a better version of myself again.
I'll have to have a quick conversation with Jimmy Gopperth, see if your communication in French is any better than your communication in English.
Well, luckily I could shout at English at Jimmy, can't I?
I was going to say, yeah. Who's the best player you've ever faced, and why? And if you're not that comfortable giving one as an example, give us like maybe a flavour of how would you prefer to play against a big bruising wing like a Tuasova or centre like Tuasova, or someone like a Curtly Aronson who's going to step you in a phone box, etc. So maybe if there's anybody in particular, the best you faced.
I was very lucky I've played against some amazing players in my time. Like I've mentioned Brian. Like Brian was the kind of player that for me never given the outside, but he's got good footwork. He could do on the inside, so that was a nightmare. Vincent Clerc had a fair few games against him. Him at his best. You've never seen a man move like him, and his footwork is incredible. The one I probably learned the most off, very young man, very young age, was second or third test. We played New Zealand in Cardiff in the Principality, and obviously New Zealand got such an amazing back three and the turnover as well. But Jose Gia, we played out in France, played Toulouse for a bit.
Yeah.
I just remember just come off a field going. I don't think I was even. There was no point in me being here today. I just felt like his positioning, we spoke about being in the right position, the right time, in and out off people's shoulders. He was doing pick and goes. He was, picking up crossfield kicks, kicking himself defensively, making, changing the picture. And I was, as a young guy watching him, I was like, and you learn a lot. And I think for me, that was what I would call like rugby craft, about like little things like, defensive, changing the picture off a scrum. So you think the space wide, then you change the picture, just like little nuances that I hadn't really, really seen a lot of. And I just remember New Zealand, well, they're not a bad team at the best of times, so they all the worst of times, but he was just a different level on that day. And I learned a lot in that game just about rugby smarts. And I think now I've been around the block, I can say I've learned a fair few myself now. But you just at 18, that was a real education, I should say.
Yeah, it's funny that because I remember I played against Carter in my 5th or 6th test, whatever, and I just remember thinking like I'm nowhere near good enough to be at this level currently. I remember it wasn't so much the flash things he did. He was so in control of everything he did. He didn't want the ball all the time, and it just it's an education when you're that young and that when you're playing against such good players, isn't it?
It's that horrible moment where you wish the guy you're playing against is playing so well. You wish, as a fan, you could watch this from the outside, not be the guy facing it. But yeah, like I said, I played, against so many. Yeah, but those guys just unreal.
I wanted to maybe chat a little bit about, because we've spoken about so many big moments and successes, etc., that you've had. What would be the toughest moment in George North's career, either physically or mentally?
Well, it's been a few. I think for me, I touched on it. 217 Lions was tough because obviously that's the only thing and the only place you ever wanted to be. And as a player, I was there, I was living it, I was doing it, but I just didn't get a chance. And then my hamstring ripped, and that took a fair while to absorb that one. I tell you, I had not a rough patch, but I think after between 213 and 215, you probably remember that not playing bad rugby, just wasn't hissing, just getting marked. And that was the proper time where social media kicked in and everyone was telling you everything and what have you. And, not just me, a load of boys had it at the time. And I found that really tough because it wasn't through not trying. It was just maybe over trying and not having to bounce the ball. But for me, I think injuries is the worst. Again, I seek 21. I felt like I was playing really good rugby at that time. Lions tour to SA, so to Africa, and I ruptured my Achilles, not my Achilles, my ACL. And then I thought I had a fair crack at the whip to be on that tour, and that they're the ones that sit with me. Warby still owes me a fair few points after 2011. But for me, it's the injuries, and the injuries that stop you from from being able to, like the ACL with the Lions in 21. Not that I was picked, I don't know. Never really asked Gats. I should have really. But they're the ones that I found hard because there's nothing you can do about it. At least with the form or people on social media can do something about it. But injuries is the pits for me.
You touched on the injuries there. Was there, I remember it, I think, was it like 14, 15 where you had 4 or 5 head injuries in the space of a few months or whatever it was. How given everything that we know now about head knocks and everything, how difficult was that? And was there a period where you thought this isn't worth it, or that maybe this is time to call it a day?
It was tough at the time because I was the first, as such, documented. And at the time, there was boys who had had more knocks and stuff than me, but I was the one just kept getting dragged through it. And I think that probably had a time where obviously wasn't playing my best and all that. But I found it incredible what people were happy to say and comment and write in the press, because they hadn't met me, they didn't know my history, they didn't know my medical history, but people found it like nuts that I was seeing specialists, and I was like, why would I not see specialists? It's my best people and put me in the best place. I ended up seeing 2 or 3, and then finally, found Prof. Tony Belly in Birmingham, who a lot of boys go to now. I was leading the way, and spoke rationally with him. Did a load of tests. I ended up having 6 months out as well with no contact, leading into that 2015 World Cup. Touch wood. And I've been good since, pretty much. And for I think for good 5-6 years after, well, 5 years after. So up until 2020, I would see Prof Belly off my own back. I would see him, a minimum of 2-3 times a year, just as a maintenance thing. And I said to him, "Can I come and see you 2-3 times a year? Just so if we get a lot more information, a lot more data, so then in, say, 4 years' time, I'm still playing." He says, "Gee, your numbers, for this is coming down. Numbers for this is coming down. It's not worth it." Then at that point, 100%, I'm going to walk away. But I can only ever do what the specialists and the team can put in front of me. And I'm very lucky that I had the best medical team, with the union and the club at Northampton at the time. They were brilliant with me. The same with Prof Belly. Even now, I still see him a minimum of 2 times, well, at least once a year, 2 times a year now. And, in touch wood, everything is great. But for me, it was always doing the most I can do for my own, brain health, and, with supplements and different brain tests and little games every day, keep learning and keep pushing my brain. So, it's been a whirlwind, and people always tell you what they think. They're very happy to get their opinion across. But, I can only do what I'm doing now, which is the most with, the doctors and the specialists.
I think that's amazing, George, because, like concussion and head injuries are the most common injury in rugby, and people will always go and maybe see a masseuse in their own time, or go and see their own physio or chiropractor, whatever it is. But I think what you're doing and what you're saying there, I think that's sort of like setting the standard for the most common injury, to go and see almost like an MOT, isn't it? A couple of times a year to make sure you're okay to carry on doing it.
Well, why would you not? And luckily, like, my numbers are the same, if not better. There's no evidence. So, I've been very lucky. But like, there's boys now that are playing with a lot more knocks and blows than me. So it's but again, I'm always ever gonna do the best for me, if that makes sense.
I've got a feeling this question may well have come from Rob, because I think you know where he wants this to go. But the best sledge or pitch side chat you've given or received, and any that maybe I've given you, and I think I know where Rob wants this to go.
Yeah, there's been a fair few from you, but there wasn't much coming out of you apart from hot noise and a load of, "Can we swear on this?" Oh no, probably not. Just like this, you, that, and I'm looking at you going, you haven't actually said anything apart from you.
Do you know what's funny about that? You know about the World Cup one where there was a lot made of it. Do you know? I don't know if you remember.
Then. I still get therapy from that.
do you know what was funny after that though? Do you remember in the changing room, like 30 seconds after it, we're in there and we're talking, we're sat down. You're not, trust me, you've had a lot worse than that in training from Sean Edwards.
I'm crying. You're laughing. I don't know what's going on.
But do you remember we were calm, we were composed, and we actually sort of said, right, this is what we need to do. And it's almost like in the moment, that's just, I mean, that was very much my personality anyway. But I think from your point of view, you were very much used to those kind of flare-ups. Yeah,
I'm used to your tantrums. But it's one of those ones when you almost, like I said about, what Henry Pollock needs, that's what gets the best out of him. That was you at your best. Sometimes you're a bit too good. Fair. I would happy if you were less good.
But in fairness, I had man of the match that game, so I was right at the right level. I was at the right level.
You were right on the border, I tell you, from a broken nose as well. But that's the difference when you talk about like a conversation and a high performance conversation. Like that's you and high performance, and then the next thing you have to move on. So luckily, I've got thick skin. Thanks, Sean Edwards, for that. But the funny one, actually, that World Cup one, it's not even me that messes up. It's Nick, and you're having a go at me.
It's Nick and Sanj, but you were just the one. Nick and Sanj messed up before. You were just the one caught with the ball.
I fixed it, and I'm getting shouted at. I've been shouted at a loads. One of the funniest ones I've had, and I remember from this day, was I was 17 playing for Scarlet, and it sticks with me to this day because you would have played down at Gloucester. Down at Kingsholm, 17. One of my first professional games against Leslie Vinopolo. Do you know about they call the volcano? Vinocolo, sorry. And I remember warming up, and this voice from the shed was going, George. I won't do the accent, but George.
He's Irish, is he?
Yeah, he's Jamaican actually. And George, and I was like trying to focus, 17. And I turn around, and there's this old lady in the shed, and she's just shouted. She's gone, "Go home, you sheep shagging rubber duck." I've looked at her, and it's like as soon as she said it, it's like she was happy. She just walked off then, and I was like, "What have I just experienced?" Anyway. Leslie didn't. He broke his collarbone in 20 minutes, so it did me a solid. So, but yeah, again, like that is rugby. Not maybe you were the extreme for sure. But like, do you mean in terms of like next job mentality? Let's move on with it. Like, so fun times, Biggs, isn't it?
Fun times, mate.
More fun times than me.
George, you've been absolutely brilliant, mate. Let's just finish up with this summer's Lions tour. How do you see it going? What's your feeling looking ahead to it?
I'm excited. I think the squad that Faz has picked is exactly probably what you imagine. Maybe a few that probably should have gone, maybe not. I don't know, but it depends on the bigger picture on the coaching staff. Australia are obviously very much a rebuilding stage now, so it'll be interesting to see how they go. But honestly, I think I'm really positive for Lions. I think obviously it'll be tough when it comes to the tests. As you well know, tests are different compared to your provincial games, but it actually be interesting to see because there's a bit of experience there. There's not a huge experience like we've had in the past in the tours that we've been on, but there's guys that are in form there, and there's guys that probably will find some form very quickly because they have to as well. So I'm excited to see. Give us a quick prediction, George, for the summer Lions in the series. Copy and paste from 213. I'll go 2-1 Lions, but it'll come. I don't know, just for a headline, maybe like a bit of excitement. Australia win the first one, Lions win the second, and then take on to the third. Nice. George, we can't thank you enough, mate. You've been an absolute brilliant guest. And dinner is on me when we come down to Dinners is on me. Are on me. Thanks, mate. Easy.